everybody, Paulina here. Welcome to the new year. Happy New Year, happy esoteric new year as we embark on a new cycle through space and time on the 21st of March, beginning with the amazing equinox that's taking place in Aries as the baby is born. What do we have in Pisces? In Pisces in March we have the ability to move on. We've got death. We've got a long time coming changes. We've got a shift in the air, and we've got something very interdimensional and very impractical maybe for most of us, but we've got the end. We've got a lull, and we've got a shift that only takes place obviously once a year, as Pisces evokes us into journeying within more than without, and also helps us understand the full spectrum of being that we are. So welcome, you're in March, and I'm Paulina. Hello, welcome. Let's talk a little bit about you. So what to expect in the new year. The year of the rooster. Yes, I've done already a series for the Chinese New Year if you'd like to have a look, but that was more based on the sun and the sun's energy. This is a series based on the universe, on the overall blueprint, the different constellations and the different parts of the solar system as well. So let's have a look at where the blueprint takes us from 2017 till 2018. So this is a period of 21st of March 2017 till the 21st of March 2018. Let's do it. This is not about you anymore. This is not about the inward. This is not about who you are or where you've been. It's more about your truth and your purpose. It is not really about how you do, it's about what you are currently undertaking. So this year is not really about pulling in new consciousness, understanding what is and what is not. It is not a quiet time, it is more a doing time. It is definitely a forging force behind us that makes us do what we do. So beware of that, and understand that sometimes this flash can come across as a really aggressive phenomenon. Sometimes we might feel like we've got to meet something, or we need to be with someone, or we need to be there when we don't. So take this time into consideration as we are in March currently, what you do not need to do anymore. I'm speaking now during the full moon. We've got a full moon in Virgo right now on the 12th of March, and this energy basically evokes a knowing that what you had going for a long time did not need to be. So simplify your life and cut it down. I mean, imagine if you are a person, imagine yourself as the fool in the tarot. You've got only a small suitcase to go forward with. You've only got a small idea bank to go forward with. You only got a small value system that you can take into the new frontier. So start with that. What is important to you? What is not? And today and for the rest of the week is going to be a really nice shedding time before we kick into the 20th. And this time is really good for us to really evolve through what we do not yet know about ourselves, but also understand that what we have known and have learned can be discarded now. It was only maybe training wheels, it was only a growing aid. So something of the past has to go, something has to die, and something has to be left behind in order to give ourselves the greater burst, the reimbursement for the new frontier of creation. Another thing for March to take into consideration before we embark on the new year is the knowing and the glow. What I mean is the knowing of what you are is fine. So this will solidify at least by the end of the week. There will be a knowing of who you are and where you are and what you do and where you're going to go. But at the same time, there's going to be a glow which is beyond you. So it's like almost like taking you out further than what you can perceive yet, or taking you into the abyss, maybe even into some kind of a different dimension, when you know in the ways that you're following a mirage, or a part of you is becoming mirage-like, and that's what we are needing for the next year to come. So like a solidified energy that is very simplified and very, very strong, like it's got a lot of brawn to it, but at the same time also a very, very lucid energy that's almost like a veil over your reality that pulls you inwards and sort of makes you how can I say, infiltrate a space that you do not already know, that you do not already understand, but it will beckon with time. So surrendering into mystery while also having a very nice core to work with here. In the first part, I feel in the first part, you would have may be known by January, in the first part of 2017, if we're looking at the numerological sequence, as this changes in January 2018. In the first part of 2017, in January, you would have probably known or heard a big yell within, or a big scope open up, like a big birthing process has begun inside, on an intellectual level maybe, or like an inward part of you is being burst open, and then by January 2018 that will close. I feel that there'll be like a closing of sorts and a packing up, which will voice a new frontier as the becoming, over time, which will take many, maybe different warps and shifts. So like we're looking at a journey that will begin in 2018 in January, that will be like a warping journey through time. So whatever you pick up from the Libra transit of Jupiter, you will continue on in some way purposefully later. Another thing probably to not underestimate this year so far, numerologically 2017, how you've been going towards the end of the year, how you've been rolling or tumbling towards March. I mean, have you been walking really, really fast? Maybe it's a really good time to slow down. If you are shifting a lot of things for other people, it's definitely time to withdraw your energy completely from them. Maybe give yourself a bit of a contrast where you don't have any access to anybody else. If you've got a lot of things to do on the mind, but not in the heart, that's also another thing to address. Also another thing to think about is placidity, involvement in the ether world without really having enough to do in the physical. That's another thing to have a look at and maybe balance out, because we do have Jupiterian scales at the moment, so balance is really good for us. In the all, I feel this year is looking very, very bright for a person that's able to be themselves no matter what. So the previous year was very much a personality reimburser, sort of a sifter and a softener of who you are. And I feel when we go into the new frontier, you're sort of like allowing yourself to glow more, but with greater purpose and with a greater journey in mind. And I'm not sure what that is to me, but I feel for a lot of people, this new possibility of life is becoming very, very, very big, or very, very grotesque or grandiose. Like there is like a bulbous factor about this new year that is ushering us into like a very, very, very strong hold. But at the same time, it's also putting us into sort of like a really mellow state where we don't understand actually what it's all for, which is fine. Another thing that I'd like to mention for the first part of the year, as we are rolling into April, it's not a good time to speculate anymore. So because we're going into Rooster and the solar system is dancing a very, very blocky dance, if you can imagine like a geometry rather than a wispy hairline. The previous year was almost like a wispy form of brush strokes, like a painting of brush strokes overlapping each other. And this coming year is more like a bulbous kind of like blocky, regimented maybe energy that is not really able to be concealed. It is something that is very bright and colorful, and is something that is very geometric in its form. So maybe for the first part of the year, definitely I would probably suggest for the first part not to overdo it, but at the same time be strong with what you do, and do not sort of how can I say, weighing yourself, weighing yourself, like do not silence yourself, and do not subdue yourself to the point where you don't really know who you are anymore. It's a very nice time actually at the beginning of the year to be very strong and kind of sticky, to be very, very maybe even vulgar to other people, because Aries usually brings out a part that is a little bit rambunctious in people, but also to try not to lace up anybody else's story with your timeline, not patching up anybody else's mind. It's like a very separating energy that perhaps doesn't feel good to the modern man or woman, but this separation is basically knowing who you are, where you stand, and what your cultural background is as well. So having a look at your own I guess superiority in your world, and being one with yourself during the first part of the year. I feel as October ends, the transit of Jupiter ends, a lot of different things happening there. I feel by October there should be a definite low, or like a coming down, and what you thought was really knightly and priestly about you, what was really royal and regal about you, will then subdue into something that is just really ordinary and extraordinarily boring for you, maybe. So this whole new shield, or this whole new, how can I say, this brand new flag that you're carrying into the year is not going to be that forever. It will be a contrast at first, but then it will become subdued part of your normal everyday thinking and everyday function. So don't be afraid of the big contrast at the beginning, because it will be worthy of itself later, as I feel you will understand what it all meant by the end of October. And I feel by October you'll definitely recognize that it wasn't really a big deal. What you are becoming is maybe very, very huge for you now, but at the end of this transit in Jupiter, it'll just be kind of like normal, everyday reality. Another thing to do is not to jump to conclusions about people or people's stories. It's a very, very tough year for people who have jealousy issues. It's not a very good year for people who are very maternal or paternal towards their partners as well. So it's a very, very nice time to be as one, and communities like to be as one with many different people, many different cultures, but also by now you would have probably recognized that a group or a familiar place is beckoning you back or inwards. There will probably be likely a time loop at the moment where we are connecting and we're becoming one with new formation with different people. We're sort of finding a soul family or finding some kind of a hub. But the whole idea of the relationships being on the forefront due to Jupiter is not quite so. Jupiter is in Libra, yes, I'm mentioning it again. But I feel during this, especially first part of the year, the esoteric year starting from March, we're not going to really be looking at together forever anymore. I feel we'll actually be separating and create like almost like a separatist lifestyle, where even a husband and wife could work out some kind of union where he's got his own thing going and she's got something else. So people are really becoming independent and self-efficient, and also understanding that the force within is too much to put onto one person, to give to one human. So maybe even with a child, if you've got children, you might actually find that there's more separation and more ownership of your own space, which is really nice to see. Another thing I see for this year is very interesting shifts in commerce and finance. I don't actually feel that people will carry on the way that they have been. I feel that most of us will shift somehow the dimension of how we deal with money in a very, very big way for some of us. I mean, for some of us, it might be a complete change of their workforce, of the workforce where they're working, work field. And for other people, it might be a complete disregard for money, or like a sudden understanding that you want money and money will become like part of the attainment cycle. But I feel a change is a must, and I feel it is a very just change. So whatever you're going through, like say, for example, you remove yourself from a career, or say you suddenly got a uplift and you're suddenly making a lot more money, just embrace it, because it's actually meant to be this way. And usually with this kind of energy, it'll be a just change. It'll be a really good change. A few things to mention also about kids and how we nurture our children through money and monetary gain. I feel that when we are reimbursing patterns within our children to do with attainment, we are actually pulling ourselves out of ourselves. When we're telling our children that we want them to thrive and to make quite a good living for themselves, as they get older and they go to university and things like that, we're actually betraying ourselves in a way, because we are connecting them to a life that's not meant for us either. And this is going to become a very big issue, I feel, for a few people, as they kind of understand maybe suddenly that they haven't been taught well and they haven't really done that well with their kids so far. So what to do by the end of this energy, maybe towards no, like by the end of this energy, maybe towards the end of the Pluto retrograde, we'll find that our kids are like, how can I say, we might find that our kids are like needing not what we thought they did. We might actually not be so heavy-handed with our upbringing as well. Like when we look at how we bring up our children and how we've been brought up, we may not weigh things up on the same scale. We might actually really let go and release a lot of deep needs and wants for our kids, and also a lot of stigma that we receive through our family line. If anybody's got work to do, it would definitely be you. If by the end of March 2017, you are really, really pumped. So be aware of that, and also look into that. If you're working very, very much, or you feel like a huge desire and an insatiability and an idea of working for somebody or working on a project yourself, be wary, because quite likely if you are by the 16th of March cannot relate, like if you cannot relate to just being, it is kind of like you are saddling yourself, like, you know, like putting a saddle on yourself like a horse, you know, like you're putting the reins on yourself. You're basically allowing reality to use you as a working horse for the next while. It sounds really weird, but it's almost like a commitment to something that's not real. So if you do really, 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 really want to work hard this year, keep going. You know, if that's part of your fractals, if you want to really find out what overpressure is about. But because we've got a very, very blocky year in the future, this coming year is so blocky and so bright and so colorful and so obscure in many ways. I feel that if we are pulling ourselves into work now and we are steadily feeling like our income needs to be generated through hard labor, it'll escalate and it'll become an avalanche later. So it's very likely to completely work yourself to the bone later if you have started this new year on a work ethic, because that will stick. And for some of you guys, it'll stick forever, or a very, very long time, because it's a very imprinting time at the beginning of the year and the end of the previous cycle, as well as we are going through March now. So without further ado, I guess I touched on the main topics. I will go through all the different signs now and let you know what's in your future. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time. Bye.